So, I wish you all welcome to the first session of e-Estonia. Throughout the day, we are going to hear a lot about Estonian experience on building this e-state and e-government. And these sessions are going to continue through 3 days, so altogether 6 sessions. And I think that participating on the sessions, you learn a lot about how we did it, what experience we gained, and what we think was important. This session is called Laying the Foundations, so we're going to start right from the beginning. And I need a tool. So, much better. And first, we would like to thank our sponsors. This session is sponsored by European Regional Development Fund. And my name is Erki Arus. I'm going to moderate this session together with Yuri, Misnikov. And we're going to have 5 presentations in a row. And it's a good opportunity for me to give a word to Yuri, who's going to give a short word, and then we'll continue.
Thank you very much, Erki, and good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to say a few words about exactly those foundations which my colleague Erki has mentioned, and I would like to say about those foundations not in a very literal term, foundations in terms of the infrastructure which Estonia has so successfully built, providing access, but also about the foundation, about how Estonia has become so successful institutionally and internationally. And one of the origins of that has been a sort of joint project with the Estonian government and the United Nations Development Program, which I used to work for. As you can see from my title, today I represent the Leeds University of the United Kingdom, but in the past there was a project together with the Open Society Institute in Hungary, Budapest, when we decided that that was a good idea that Estonia could share its experience in developing information society in general terms, but also, of course, there was specific projects which were focusing on, and one of them was exactly, I think, the founding element of that. It was the Tiger Leap program, which President of Estonia has mentioned today. It was the beginning, and I am proud to say that one of the supporters of that project in 1996, 1997 was UNDP. At the time, my former colleague Lina Vik, who was managing that project, and I would like to mention that that particular project in support of this initiative of the Ministry of Education won the Best Project Award among UNDP in the whole region in 1997 in the meeting in Istanbul. So there's some history to that. And I think it's very important that we still remember that, particularly for the audience, for all the participants, that the issue of access and equal access, inclusiveness, as the President has mentioned, is the key issue. And the way that schools were selected to be those key institutions that would not only show the way how access can be done inclusively, but also provide access to local communities on a larger scale. And I don't know whether it's part of the document package, but this is the publication which showcases the Estonian experience in this Tiger Leap program, which connected all the schools to the internet already in 1999. e-Governance Academy was at the forefront of spreading that knowledge. And for example, a similar project was implemented in Georgia. It was called differently, of course, not Tiger's Leap, but and then other countries was looking at that, and some elements were implemented in the Western Balkans. So this is something which, again, the demand for this kind of international cooperation in providing better access to population at large and also to specific institutions, be it schools or museums or libraries, is the key aspect. And this is something which we're going to discuss at this session. And key fundamental was partnerships between the public sector, private institutions, telecom companies, training institutions, educational, and we would like to ask all the presenters to address those issues in terms of partnership, why particular partnerships were successful, how to balance public and private interest when it's not easy, of course, when you have to focus on your commercial interests, but you have to address public ends. And this is the session which also I would like to ask the audience to think in terms of their own country specifics, how they would be looking at the Estonian experience and what can be done in terms of replicating some of the initiatives or some of the projects in their own countries. So that's my initial introduction, and I'm wishing a good session and interesting questions and presenters. And with this, I would like to pass the floor to my fellow moderator, Erki. Thank you very much.
So, and to give the framework to this session, I would like to present you a slide that maybe you have seen already before, because it's not my original. While we're talking about these foundations, then this e-government infrastructure can be defined as something that is built on digitalized information. It means that we have to have the data in a form that can be look through the computer, work with a computer. Formalized data exchange is also very important, as the data is going to be located in various places in the system, and to build up a good service you need probably data from other systems, not only the systems that you have at your hand. And not less important is the identity. It's very important to be able to identify persons over the computer channels and do it safely and securely. And not less important, the experience you are going to learn during the sessions is the infrastructure as such, as we understand it in general. We need access. We need access to the networks, and not access only in some points, but everybody, any time, anywhere, should have that access. And this is something that we're going to talk today. Also, education and knowledge. People have to learn how to use a computer. And it's not that straightforward. If you think about the timeline, then I graduated university some 20 years ago. And when I graduated the university, the last year I saw the first PC. And it wasn't connected to anything else but the power line. So it was like a more modern typewriter or something. So it's a long way to something that we can call e-government. But already a couple of years later, in '94, I joined one infrastructure company building these telecom networks in Estonia. And guess, the first computer wasn't connected to anything at all as well. So it was a typewriter. But already in '97, there was a good initiative in Tiger Leap. So something changed during these 3 years. People were already thinking of getting connected and getting everybody online. And this is some change in our mindset that is we would like to present today. And of course, motivation is not less important. People are not using internet or using services because they have to, or there is no other way. They have to like it. There has to be a need for that. And this is something that people have been searching a lot. What are those applications? What is that you have to do in the internet in order for people to make use of these applications? And of course, private sector is coming very strongly into play as working together with the public sector, they are building those services. And to continue, I would like to present our first speaker today. He's the man who has committed his life to building infrastructure in Estonia. He has been working in several positions in the telecom market, and presently he's holding the position of chairman and CEO of Eesti Telecom and EMT. Please welcome Valdo Kalm.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Estonia and Tallinn. All of you. Of course, we see Estonia as a E and M country, but at the same time, for example, Tallinn is a very old city, and take a time for sightseeing in Tallinn because there are still a couple of buildings from 13th century. Then we have Search Oleviste, what was decades the tallest building in Europe. Therefore, take a time. And of course, we have a lot of nice nightclubs there. There is time for everybody. But as organizers asked me to talk about infrastructure, not so much about the services, then infrastructure is a little bit boring thing, but at the same time, that's really basis for info society. And how we started, then we started quite early. And before I go to the history, I just would like to describe our structure, who we are today. And Telia Sonera is biggest operator in Northern Europe, owns Eesti Telecom, former listed company, nowadays 100% owned by Telia Sonera. Telia Sonera is, of course, listed company. And then we have two subsidiaries, EMT, biggest mobile operator, and Elion, biggest broadband operator on the market. Just to describe the situation and who are our competitors, EMT on mobile side owns almost 50% from the market. We have very strong competitors from Scandinavia, Tele2 and Elisa. And we have quite a strong position on broadband market, on Elion side above 50%. Then as an old fixed company, we still have 77% from fixed minutes, and then we are growing quite rapidly on TV market. That's about our position. But how it started? In 1991, Estonian government established company Eesti Telecom, and already same year there was a first stage of privatization. It was quite early stage, and Swedes and Finns came in. At that time there was Telia or Televerket in Sweden and Sonera in Finland, and together with Estonian government they established first mobile company in Estonia. We made NMT launch. NMT is analog technology for mobile systems, and we started to building the network. On 92, the same companies, Telia and Sonera and Estonian government established a fixed company, Eesti Telefon at that time. That was poor fixed business at that time. And of course, we started immediately digitalization of the network. On 95 already, we launched here in Estonia GSM infrastructure, and 96 we already had 1,600 kilometers of fiber optic cables. That means that quite quickly, I would say during the 5 years, we built such a fiber optic loops in Estonia. We basically covered all the regions, all the cities, and biggest, let's say, towns were connected to the fiber. And we had at that time almost 500,000 fixed lines. Penetration is not very high, of course, it was 30%, but of course we had lower, we had something 20% in Soviet time. Therefore, we made quite a quick startup, and I would say that was also such a starting point for info society, because already 96 we had quite advanced internet, online and dial-up services. We started in 94, but basically on 96 via our daughter company we had the internet service available on a market. Then already on 96 we covered 80% with NMT technology, whole Estonia, and we had 100,000 clients. And altogether we made quite a huge investment during this first 5 years, 150 million euros. That means, of course, that's not only the money, but the whole attitude was that build the basis for infrastructure, because at the same time there was basically, how to say, internet on a table, let's say so, and we felt that something is coming. 99, we made the second phase of privatization, and I guess government made very clear decision to go to the stock market. We actually listed in Tallinn and London. We got also financial investors. That's made us more transparent. We were very open company, and I guess that's also part of the culture to be transparent, to be open, and I guess that's also supported for such a modern issue as telecommunication and IT. On 2001, there was the liberalization of fixed telecom market. That means since 2001, all the telco and IT market was liberalized. There was totally free market and competition in every market. That went quite well for us. Actually, we kept quite well our market shares, and already 2001 we got 5th position in Europe on penetration of ADSL. ADSL is fixed broadband technology. Of course, the penetration at that time was low. If I remember, it was some 6-7% from our customers or citizens, but we also started quite quickly, and we built the ADSL nodes not only in 2-3 cities, in all the biggest cities. I mean 15 cities in Estonia in one time. That gave possibility to actually interconnect or connect all the business customers at that time, and of course advanced private customers who wanted to really use internet or use already such a more advanced e-services. Mobile penetration reached 52. We launched also on 2001 GPRS, that's data technology in mobility. And on 2001 we established together with 2 Estonian biggest banks at that time, Swedbank and SEB, owned by Swedes also, we established certification center. And I'm not going to tell more about that because there will be separate presentation about that, but that actually create the basic for ID card and made such a infrastructure for all these ID services. Therefore, it's quite an important point here. That means that government actually wasn't involved. We established as a private companies, then we got support from the government. It's still owned by us, 50% Eesti Telecom, and then 50% by two banks. That means that's a very good example of public-private cooperation or partnership, but still the certification center is owned by private companies, and we're selling the services to the government. And at the same year, we together once again, biggest bank in Estonia, Swedbank, and Eesti Telecom, and then we got many co-founders, launched the project Look a World to train people use internet. And once again, that will be separate slides about this project, but I call it very important on this building of info society infrastructure. On 2003, ADSL or fixed broadband coverage reached 90% of territory. GSM coverage almost 100%, and mobile penetration reached 80%. On 2005, there was another, let's say, liberalization of the mobile market. Mobile portability took place here in Estonia. And once again, we succeeded quite well. We even got new customers as a market leader. And nowadays, of course, number portability is a very common thing, basically everywhere in Europe. Then we first in Estonia managed to launch 3G services here. We were leader here. Nowadays, we have about 25% of our customers using mobile internet. But yeah, the launch was on 2005. Mobile penetration reached 107%, and ADSL penetration 54. That means that 54 from 100 homes had ADSL or fixed broadband connection on 2005. Then our company Elion made the IPTV launch. That's the digital TV on broadband services. And the internet penetration reached 54% on 2005. I guess that's thanks to this Look a World project. That's thanks to quite a heavy competition on the market between operators. And 2007, we already launched on mobile ID. That's very similar. It basically has the same features as ID card, and you can sign the contracts. Nowadays, vote. And basically, inside the company, in EMT and in our Telecom group, there is no papers anymore at all. I'm signing all the documents with mobile ID every day using that. It takes 30 seconds and it's signed. No problem with that. Therefore, more and more I'm signing all the contracts with suppliers, but also with the government. That's very positive. That means that I'm getting the letters electronically, signed by minister or whoever. I'm sending back, signing also with ID or mobile ID, and it works perfectly. But the launch was in 2007, and 2009, our Minister of Economics, Mr. Partso, mentioned also this project S-Twin. We established together, once again, this time, private companies plus government. Then we got also foundation from EU, and we established the S-Twin to build basically broadband connection to up to 100 megabit to each household by the end of 2015. Now it's ongoing. S-Twin works well, building the fiber, and basically we handle then the private companies, the last mile or access. On 2010, we launched 4G. As our own TeliaSonera is first in the world to launch 4G in Sweden and Norway, Then we were 10th in a world, Estonia, to launch 4G. And all together for this period, we invested 9 million euros. That's a huge amount of money, of course. Our country is small, maybe that not so big money for you, but 900. Sorry, thank you. Just so that that also our industry needs the investments, and of course for basis for info society, you need invest heavily, very heavily, and honestly, I guess our winning position shows that you have to be first on a market with new technologies, and we are quite happy because Estonian customers, they are using ICT services even more than average Europe. That means that expenditure from GDP is higher here in Estonia for telco service than in Europe. Where we are today, on 2011, our e-card penetration reached 80%. I guess last news that even 35% using e-cards digitally. That means basically once a week. Then we had in the beginning of this year first in the world mobile ID elections. Everything went well, no problems with that, actually secured. Of course, there wasn't a huge number of voters, but still, we made the test and it works. Our 3G, or nowadays we call 3.G coverage, reach 99%. That means we covered basically Estonia with 3G services. And mobile penetration reached 120% in Estonia. A lot of double SIMs already, because just now we're selling specifically this year a lot of smartphones and tablets. That's definitely the trend. If you take from the sales of equipment, then basically 70% are smartphones. And then we package them with our SIM card. We buy selling such a bundles, and that really shows that there are a lot of devices with our customers. That means not only the phone, but also the tablet or PC, and it's, I would say, the trend, definitely the trend. That increase of mobile internet is very clear. We reached the penetration on mobile internet 23% here in Estonia. It doesn't show very high number, but yeah, once again, these are really real users. Once a week we call. Otherwise, we have them even more. And internet penetration, already mentioned, it's a 76%. That means, once again, people who using it at least once a week. We would like to reach 80%. That's such a benchmark for us here, because of our colleagues in Sweden and Finland. They have in these countries around 80% of internet users. I guess that's some kind of such a maximum to reach, because older people, of course, don't use so often or at all. And our ADSL penetration reached 66%. And as a conclusion, I would like to say, with this infrastructure, to build the info society, you need the basis for that, and that's basically infrastructure. Otherwise, you can't run the services and applications. And therefore, you need to be quite quick, quite aggressive. who don't have, for example, from your countries, fixed network, then it's excellent possibility to use 4G nowadays. That means the wireless solutions. It's quite a good advantage. It's easier to build. The technology is there. If you're talking about 4G, then equipment, I mean the modems are there also, quite a reasonable with a reasonable price. Therefore, it's not the problem anymore to build up quite fast backbone and fast access for info society, because info society is new type of democracy. And here we're talking about digital difference, and I guess with such info society, there is no digital difference between people. Doesn't matter where they live, how old they are. And of course, via info society, then they have the better possibilities to participate on democracy, to be involved. I guess info society for citizens, of course, after the infrastructure, there will be the application and services. I'm not going to talk about it very more, but we really have a lot of very useful services, really easy to use, as President talked about this taxation. And services will actually run such a more effective model for government and even for whole country. It's just very effective. We are just now started here a new initiative a year ago, paper-free Estonia. You can imagine how much we spend on paper. Therefore, I guess it really drives efficiency. And of course, info society, that's the freedom and new possibilities. Thank you very much. Kas küsimused või? Okay.
Sorry for that technical interruption. It wasn't planned, definitely. And now it's time for a couple of quick questions, because we started a little bit late, and I'm afraid we are not able to finish afterwards. Are there any questions? I give my mic.
Thank you for your good presentation. My question is about your investment. You said 900 million euro total investment. How did you get those money? Mm-hmm. So from government to a private sector?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, as there was quite an early stage of privatization, actually 2 steps, then basically we got this money from investors. No, exactly, no government money at all, at all. That's very clear from the beginning.
How they get returns? How they get returns? Is it government guaranteed?
No.
How they get the return from their investment?
No, actually, they established a joint venture in 1991. And of course, for them, in a first year, the investment wasn't so huge. That means that the risk wasn't so big. And there wasn't no guarantees at all at that time. They took the risk, basically. We didn't have, even in 1991, in the beginning of the year, we had basically the Soviet Union still. Therefore, they took the risk. Sorry.
So I saw the question over here. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm asking about the mobile ID. What was the triggering need for it? And how do you see the achievement so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the need is easy to use. Just that was the most important driver, because if you take ID card as a card, you have to have reader to put the card to the computer. But with mobile ID, they don't need to have nothing. You're just pushing the PIN codes via mobile, and it's done. Therefore, easy to use. That was the main driver, and we see very, very good development. As I already mentioned, I'm using it every day, because it's easy to use. Sometimes, honestly, ID card is also very convenient, but sometimes you're forgetting the card to the computer, running to the other room, and then there is certain, let's say, couple of security risks. Not very big, but with mobile ID, you don't have that.
So I would put it that way, that mobile ID helps where you don't need the ID card reader itself. So you can, in principle, you can sign documents anywhere where you have a computer just.
And how do you see people acceptance for using your mobile ID?
Yeah, we have nowadays 40,000 active users. It's not a big amount, but they are business people, early adopters, I would say. Very good customers of EMT. Therefore, for our you have to drive a little bit customer need. Therefore, they are happy. Both. That means that you can use public services. In public registers, there is a button for mobile ID. If you go to the web, there is a ID button and mobile ID. Plus, all the banks have the same. That means you can use basically all e-services via mobile ID nowadays.
So, and one last question, and afterwards maybe we have time for discussion and then take the rest at the end.
You mentioned that usage of ID card is about 30% or 35%, something like that.
Yes, electronically. Yeah.
Electronically, yeah. But penetration is 80%.
Right.
So it means that many people are not using this in this manner.
Right.
What are you intend to motivate more the people using that, and what is the trend actually now? So what is your forecast when you will reach?
That's separate, I guess even presentation will be, but I see the positive trend definitely, because there are more and more useful services in a web. That motivates, definitely, if it's really useful. The second is actually we're running a couple of educational programs. For example, this Look a World, what we are running together with we had together with the banks. Then we had also special courses how to use ID card. And third is such a government policy. if you're changing your passport, you have to have also ID card with you. That means that I guess there will be the penetration of ID card 100%, and I see that in a coming 2 years there will be penetration of electronic users 50-60%.
I guess we can address this question also in another presentation. So I would suggest that we move on because it's already almost 12 o'clock. So thank you.
Thank you.
Valdo.
Thank you.
So our next speaker has been working a lot in IT and telecom market, has a long experience in various projects, consulting and pulling things together. And as I learned just lately, he's also writing a book on e-Estonia.
Together with co-authors.
Yes. So I wish to welcome Oleg Shvaikovski.
So it's forward and it's back, right? Thank you. Erki, have I to be fast? I have to be fast, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, what is essential here is that what Valdo has told about is an extremely essential, because as history shows, in the countries where the privatization of telecom comes on an early stage, where the countries, if the liberalization of telecom markets come on an early stage, in these countries we see that the building of foundation comes much faster, I mean much faster than countries where the telecom became state-one. And here is one more topic what Valdo have gently touched, is a building of broadband coverage. It's an extremely essential point, and I mean, we all understand that we have to be connected to internet in order to provide and to reach all the services we are talking about. If you will just see on Estonian picture here, then formally speaking, Estonia is quite successful country here. Estonia is over there, and European average is here. So Estonia is quite a successful country. The level of internetization in Estonia is a level where how much households are using broadband connections is much higher than average in European Union. Quite essential parameter is that that more than 97% of households in Estonia have the technical ability to be connected in a few days, in a very few days, for quite a low price. And all these together shows that we are quite well positioned formally. But it's from one point of view, it's a question of enormous number of governmental and public and private initiatives what are in place. And from another point of view, essential here is that we are still dealing with the issues permanently, even in this situation also. So why we are dealing with that is not only the fact that Estonia is rather trying to position themselves compared with the Nordic countries than in European level average, but we strongly believe that there is a strong relation between the level of broadband penetration and the growth of GDP. We strongly believe, and there is a lot of evidence for that, that there is a strong relation between the broadband penetration productivity and the growth of GDP per capita. So there is a lot of researches on that done. If you would like, I would later on provide you with some sources on that. But essential here is that, for example, McKinsey argues that increase of 10% of broadband penetration leads to increase of GDP per capita on 1.4 points, and it's quite big number. And essential is that it's much higher than the corresponding increasing of mobile penetration. So we do believe that it increases the productivity. It's already proved that the person who is, say, connected, who is using the internet, who has a computer, who is well educated, produces more than 500 United States dollars more GDP per capita per year compared with non-connected person, and that's the numbers what we are pursuing. So actually it means that if we are talking about the 76% of populations who is actively using internet, I mean all over the Estonian populations, actually for us it means a digital divide. Actually for us it means that there are still a little bit less than 300,000 persons who is not using internet, and this is a quite serious obstacle to build information society. That's why there is a lot of programs like Village Road, like educational projects, broadband penetration increasing programs, such kind of things, what is improving the situation. I will talk about some of them. I mean, there was a lot of initiatives, more successful, less successful, but about some of them I just briefly talk. One is quite interesting series of projects. Actually, it was three separate series of projects. The closest translation is Village Road of these projects. And I think that the third one was the most successful out of them. Actually, all of three projects has almost the same goal. So we are talking about the last mile. We are talking about the last mile in regions where the penetration of internet, I mean, it's rural areas when the penetration is quite low. And the government would like to achieve a situation that the price of internet will go down dramatically, and the speed and other parameters of internet will go up dramatically. And the third one, for example, was structured in a way that Estonia is divided on 15 counties. So for each county, government actually says that, you know, guys, says to telecoms, I would like to achieve here a situation that the internet on this area will cost no more than some quite small amount of money, that the speed of internet will be no less than, for example, 1 megabit per second. And there was a lot of other parameters. So each operator, if he will put these parameters to his business model, we will see the situation that the business model will, return on investment in this business model will be kind of 10 years, what is actually infinity in telecom business, because the equipment is quite old for 5 years. So it means that there is a need for additional money for that. And actually what government do, government asks each telecom, you know, what kind of money you will need in order to provide the internet on those conditions. And those telecom who is asking less money from government, those telecom is getting the contract on that. And as a result of that, actually, altogether in this QLAT 3, Village Road 3, government spent 1.3 million euros. It's quite a small amount of money, and thanks to that, we've got more than 10,000 households connected. So if you will just see the number, how much one household connected will cost to government, it's quite low number compared with a lot of other countries. So that was a story about one example of the stories with last mile. Another example, what Valdo actually has mentioned also, is a story with Estwin. If Village Road is about last mile, then Estwin is about core network. So the major idea here is that we would like to achieve a situation by year 215 when every single building in Estonia will be connected to at least 100 megabits of internet. So when the optics will be in every single village in Estonia. And if you will just put this picture on the Estonian reality, Estonia is, as you must know, as you may know, Estonia is one of the lowest population density countries in Europe. So there is 1.3 million persons living in 45,000 square kilometers. So it's not so easy to achieve this situation here. Actually, in Estonian context, it means that more than 6,000 kilometers of fiber optics has to be built here, and that's why the project was established. Actually, there is a consortium of 8 major telecoms in Estonia, including our company also. And the major idea behind that project was that this consortium, this partnership of private companies, they are owning the core network. They are providing this core network to everybody who would like to use it on transparent prices. And the goal of these operators outside of this consortium is just to build up the last mile. So we do believe that the project will be successful, and the project is financed both by government, by private companies who is inside this project, and some European funds also. There was a lot of other initiatives like governmental policies, not only governmental but also the public-private partnership on building up the free Wi-Fi hotspots, the open internet points in libraries, in villages, in offices of postage services and such kind of things. And as a result of that, actually, in Estonia, there is more than 1,000. I mean, to be exactly, yesterday I've just seen the picture that it's 1,134 free Wi-Fi points in Estonia. So actually, it means that not to have the free Wi-Fi, for example, in bar, it's competitive disadvantage. So it will mean for customers of these bars that they will rather not come to the point. So that's briefly about the building this foundation. It's quite understandable that if we will just have internet and will not have the computers, will not have the education, what Tiit will talk about as the next person, it's everything of this doesn't have any sense. But if we will just put together all these pictures with educational issues, with computerizational issues, then it starts flying. Thank you. I've tried to be fast.
Thank you very much. Yes, exactly. It was really very informative and fast presentation. I would like to ask the audience if there are any quick, immediate questions. I think we can follow the model and up to 3 questions can pick up. No questions? Maybe we can, too fast. Maybe we still have discussion after that. But I would like to have a question from myself in this case. What I was looking at and trying to understand that you've of course painted quite successful developments in that area, and we know Estonia is good at that. But at the same time, it was quite complex because you mentioned government talking to businesses, then there was list of ministries, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of in the Interior. So it's quite complex picture of actors involved in that. And the question, of course, arises, how do you agree on that? Because it's, of course, if there are funds available, for example, from structural funds from EU, or there is some money available from the government, still the government has to decide that, okay, we will give the money to the private sector, you will complement with other funds, so pull together, and then we go ahead. But still the issue is, so who actually starts the talks? How you sort of define the range of actors? What's the process? I think that would be probably of interest of the audience. How this dialogue takes place, who starts it and who ends, and how finally the decision is taken. So some machinery of that.
You know, there is no one single answer to your question. In each specific situation, the separate participants of the projects will start this dialogue. I think the crucial question here is to find out the construction where everybody is interested in the project. I think that's the most crucial point here. So in terms of, for example, this EstWin project that we have mentioned, each of these ministries have their own interests there. So Ministry of Interior Affairs, for example, they have to deal with the regional development, for example. So Ministry of Economy have their own interest. It's quite understandable what kind of interests have each telecom company who is here. Well, definitely there are some obstacles in the process. Definitely there are a little bit different interests in the process, but each participant of the process have just to be quite open enough and to be able to communicate, and then the process will start to move on.
1, 2, 3. Is there any task force? Is some kind of regular meetings which you have? Because you mentioned there is a consortium that maybe something of those small but important details.
Yeah, I mean, in case of, once more, in case of EstWin, there is a specific organization behind that. So there is an organization with some persons hired who is dealing only with that, and that's the only task what they have to manage the project, like a project management organization. But definitely there is a council in this organization. The council consists from representative of each of these founders, and this council comes together, as far as I know, 1 time per quarter and decides the strategic issues. All other time, if the directions is set up, in that situation, the project management team inside the organization is dealing with the issue.
Thank you very much. If there are no any questions, I just give the floor to Erki to continue with the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. There is, of course, another theory why Nordic countries are so keen on telecom and internet. Have you noticed the weather outside? It's getting worse. So, I wish to introduce the next speaker. He has been working in Telecom for very many years. His current position is in EMT, so mobile operator, but today he's going to talk something else, not about this mobile com, but that look at world. Please welcome Tiit Tammiste.
Good morning. Let's move from hardware, from infrastructure, a bit to the more soft issues, and I will talk you a little bit about the Look at Work project, how it began and what we achieved. And again, let's start from history. It was a little bit more than 10 years ago when the leaders from two major banks, Telecoms and major Estonian IT companies, all together, 10 companies coming together and discussed about the possibility to rise the internet penetration. And the main difference of other such discussions was that all of these companies, they were ready to invest. And all together, they were ready to invest more than 12 million euros. It's private money, just to put to a society and to rise with the quality of society. Then we started, we discussed that we wanted to rise with the quality of life of Estonian people to connecting them to the internet. It means that to rise the availability of internet, to simplify the usage of that, and then to modify them. And we think that to do it, the rise of the quality in their life, mainly it's seen that the citizens of very small country can act in the world like they are coming from the big country, so no difference anymore. This was somehow our wish. Of course, the project, or even it's not a project, we say it's program which consists of many of projects. We needed to set the internal goal to motivate the management of this, and we said internally that let's catch the Finland in internet penetration. Finland, as a headquarter of Nokia, was the main competitor for us in this field, and we saw it as a let's say a wonderland. In starting point in 2001, our internet penetration was 26%, and Finns they had 54%. I can say that in 3 years, as we planned the program, we catched this 54%. But unfortunately, we didn't catch the Finland because they developed and then move on. But yes, now we are very close, and even on that time we were quite close. The main topic which we discussed in the beginning was why we are participating on such a program. Is it just a charity, philanthropy? Is it something for the business and paying back very soon? Or is it some PR benefits? And there were long discussions with program members and also in the society what is the driving force for this program? And after the discussions, we decided that yes, it's a charity. On that time, it was not usual that private sector puts such a big money for charity. But we believe that it gives back in the future with development of business climate and with the development of efficiency of society. What we did, we initiated projects in 3 main domains. First was access. So our way of thinking was that first of all we need to give the people access to the internet. And from the first stage the decision was that we don't try to change the business competition here, but we initiate the projects. We start the things, but we don't operate them, and we don't donate any business. So first is access, that they are able to connect to internet. Next needed thing is training. So it means that how to use, and main issue on that time what we saw is the first step. So that people, they are just afraid to make the first click to help to them to do it. And then after that, this is coming with the motivation. So why I need to go to internet each day, each week, very often. Starting from access, we decided to create a lot of public internet points. There was on that time already some little bit less than 200 of them. We created additional 500 public internet points. We put it in libraries, in schools, in local government houses, in some smaller villages, even in the shops, because there were the places where people getting together. And to every this point, we donated the computers, we organized the connection, and we made the contract with a local operator of that point. And we said that you need to operate it, and you need to help, not train, but just help the people who are coming there. And it works very well, and they are, some of them are still alive and working. And of course, we worked with government, with the broadband strategy and things like that as well. But I think this public access internet points, it was the main thing that we did to give access. So it means that not the personal access, but they will be able to come somewhere and access the internet. Next topic was the training. I don't know, did we some world record or Guinness record here, but we trained 10% of adult Estonian citizens. Idea was to build up a series of trainings. It's 8-hour trainings, 4 hours for how to use the computer, and then 4 hours to give this feeling of first click or the essentials of internet browsing. We invested altogether 3 million euros, and it means that the training of one person was around 30 euros. And we trained altogether 102,000 people. For that, we created our own classes, 17 of them, which we donated after the project to the schools. And we use other computer classes as much as we could found. And so it means that we had altogether 200 points in Estonia. There the training was provided. We have a methodology. We trained the trainers, and we make all the marketing centrally. but all the trainings were locally, and it was really during 1.5 years we did this project, and I think this was the most successful part of first stage of Look at World. And last but not least domain was the motivation. So our aim was to find some killer apps which bring the people to the internet and which keep them there. First, we think that it's a good idea to make the governmental services or local government services, put them to the internet and think that people are coming to use it. But very soon we realized that most of these services are the services which people are using very rarely, and then they are using them, then they need the consulting about why they are using it. So there was not very big motivation to bring them all to the internet. We made several think tanks, and 2 major projects we chose from that. One is e-school, and another was the library's internet access, so you can find the particular book and book it to you in the all libraries over Estonia. But e-school was the most successful killer app. It was the application which connect the school, it means teachers, the children and the parents together. Our aim, first of all, was to get the collaboration between the teachers and the parents. But what we got was that the children started to love this application. So it was so easy to go to home, to internet, and look what's lessons we need to do, or what's the next day's schedule, or whatever. And even if the parents got all the information about the bad habit or bad numbers from school, even still the children loved. And very soon we got the 300,000 users to that system. Today this e-school is privatized. It's the separate company, private company, and running it for most of Estonian schools. First stage of Look at World program was indeed to be free, maximum 4 years long. But at the end of that, we decided that this is really so good cooperation that we need to go on of that. And at the end of 2005, we discussed about the cyber crimes, about the cyber security, and decided that we need to do something here to rise up the knowledge of Estonian people about that, and to rise up the usage of secure ways of getting to the applications in internet. So the same companies, the Look at World Foundation, and plus many additional companies, plus government on that time, we joined forces and we made the 3 years computer security program. We teach the people in mobile boxes. We even had the bus which tried from village to village and trained people and raised the awareness. And our aim was to rise up the PKI users, the ID card and mobile ID card users penetration. And we did it quite well. So you heard the penetration numbers today. Then we started, it was practically zero. There we started. And of course, another thing what we started was the web page about the computer security, how to secure the computer, what to do, how to fight with viruses, etc. And here our idea was that in every village there was such kind of clever boy who is helping rest of people. And let's teach this clever boy. Let's give him the hints, give him the tools through internet, and in this case, the more and more computers are safe and clear, and it really works. Again, we started this today. It's a private initiative, and we run this web page still on a private basis, and it goes well. And again, then this project stopped. We think that still we have good companies, still we need to go on. It was year 2009, and we decided that 300,000 Estonians are still not using the internet, and we think that we need to deal with this digital gap, and our aim was to bring 1/3 of them to the internet, so to rise really the internet penetration to the point where it lives by himself. Come along, we called this project. It's mainly by Estonian Telecom companies and look at foundation companies. We started in March. We donated a lot of computers to the children, to the elder people, to the families who don't be able to buy it themselves. We created such kind of low price connection types which we sold them, and just now we are at the finish of this project. Last Friday and Saturday, myself, I spent also the time to prepare the computers, to which we make the second life and donate it to the elder people. It was 200 computers which we did last weekend. And now we see that we reach this 100,000 new internet users goal. Let's see what will be the next, but I think that there is so good spirit in this foundation that probably we will find the next steps and will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiit, for this very interesting presentation. And I must tell that from the perspective of the E-Governance Academy, of course, this particular course lecture on the look at world was really very, very interesting for everyone. It was amazing that people were discovering that such initiatives can exist and successfully exist. I agree that it's very difficult to define what it is, whether it's business or it's a charity, but I would probably define it as a kind of social enterprise in the interest of all. So any immediate questions regarding this presentation? Yeah.
Thank you. That was really interesting. We face the same issues in Russia, but the question is, there is a huge lack of literacy if we're talking about people above 30 or 40 years using the computer, using the internet. But the major issue is that except the lack of literacy, there is a lack of amount of money to buy the computers. So I wonder if you have any programs which are oriented for the people above 40 to buy them, to make the computer more affordable for them, that they can buy it, because you learn them, you teach them how to use it, but it is useless if they can't use it on the daily basis. If they can't afford to buy the computer, they can't connect it to the internet, and it means that again, this training program will be useless. So do you have any experience in making the PC maybe with the plugged-in internet more affordable for these people?
From the very beginning of a Look at World program, we decided that we don't, we will not donate the computers, or we will not pay the connections for people. This was why we made these public internet access points, because the elder people, they like to come together and sit together, and they have the need for communication. So they came to these public points, and they used there very much. Also in the trainings, they participated, and after that they came to these public places. We measured also the result of a training, and more than 50% of people told after 5 months that they are still using the internet. Just to give the low price computers, we haven't experienced, but what we are doing today with this Come Along project, we give a life to the second life to the computers. So the computers which have been 3 years in the company, in the bank, in the telecom company, so we just clean them, put the clean software to that, and then we will donate it to, and this is mostly the elder people which get these.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay.
Thanks for the presentation. This was very interesting, especially in terms of education. Can you please clarify regarding connectivity of e-school? Do Estonian schools use mobile broadband or fabric for getting access of pupils, of kids to services, or both? And what about such mobile standards as LTE? Because there are huge talks, for example, in Ukraine, and I'm representing Cisco Systems working in Ukraine, yeah? Huge talks about switching every single public sector school to mobile access rather than fabric to school, rather than using fabric technologies for that. What experience do you have in that in Estonia? How do you do it?
First of all, the e-school application is internet application, and the aim of that was not to use it in the school. It's only for the teachers to use it in the school. Most of Estonian schools, they have the ADSL type of internet connection, and a lot of them are using the internet in the process of teaching as well. But our main aim was that the children and parents in their homes start to use this application as well. Of course, the mobile broadband gives us the new possibilities here, and for example, I know that there is first school in Tallinn which bought one class of iPads, put it into class, and then use it in the teaching process. And such kind of things, they are in the very beginning at the moment. And I think it's not about the technology of access or technology of connection. It's more or less about the habit, and more or less about the methodology, how to use it and why to use it. This is the most important.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the key issue. That's not about technology. And again, I just want to bring the audience attention to the slides that you can see a long list of agencies and actors involved in all that. So it's really about cooperation. Any last question?
Yeah. Montenegro, Milan Maric. One question arises when you are talking about a lot of people completely out of internet usage. Did you think about possibility that some people remain still out of this usage simply because of the reason they don't like internet and they will not use at all? Do you think about possibility to support them with some kind of support at public places or at some agencies or shelters or whatever, that someone will do the service instead of them in person.
It's already ongoing. For example, Estonian Post, we have a service where you can send the email and it reaches as a regular mail or vice versa, and such a services. I think this will be the private services, and it's definitely so that we never reach the 100% of internet penetration here. It's security reasons, it's whatever, so we are sure of that, but I think it will be the private services which gives such a thing.
So, let's say thank you. So, I'm going to introduce the next speaker. He's the grand old man of Estonian identity documents. I worked together with him, and he has been really involved in all identity document projects in Estonia. So today you're going to hear more about ID cards and digital identity. So please welcome Jüri Voore.
Thank you. I will speak mostly about 10 years experience that we learned about. As an international community here, speakers, in 15 minutes to summarize the experience of 10 years, it's mission impossible near. So I'll put mainly on the human part of and overall description of motivation if it's success. As reading international reports about Estonian ES society, still this is something unprecedented that we succeeded. And ID card project is also part of it, so I will a little bit talk about what's the role of the electronic identity and how it is all binded together. The first ideas about having the electronic ID card project were in '97. The first in Malaysia, government had started to try the public infrastructure, use it on the electronic documents. And as a forecomer, Finnish government, as a first government in Europe, introduced ID cards with the electronic chip with PKI-enabled certification system. But it was a voluntary scheme. So, as always, we are living in a society where law pays a lot of importance in making things happen. It's so that legal system is somehow based on the paper-based thinking. Starting from clay tablets and papyruses, the meaning of signature, be it a personal mark, a stamp, a seal, is always behind of the legally binding documents. It always, the document, if it's formulated, has the certain mandatory components. If it's an agreement, then the signers or parties should be identified by the name, by the status, whatever. Secondly, typically, a legal transaction is time critical. So one mandatory component is also time and place. And third one, as an expression of will, is typically confirmed by the signature of the parties. So the task in the e-services at least to emulate, to simulate the same functionalities in the digital world. If you sign, even in presence of public notarius, legally binding contract, it's easy. In internet, there need to be kind of third trusted party who will confirm using technology, and also the confirmation from the state authorities, the identity parameters of the transaction parts. So, Digital Signature Act introduced in 2000 gave the a framework how it's done. Also, law on personal identification documents entered the new document type ID with the digital data included in the personal documents. So the plan government accepted the launching in 2000, and even from the very beginning, looking at the experience of other countries, there was a so-called total plan. It means by the law, the identity card was made mandatory and primary identification document. It's like a passport without the visa pages. And basic agreement between the public institutions and private companies already mentioned, telecom and banking sector, was that it will be definitely the same infrastructural usage of the ID card. From one part, government will introduce and tender the electronic identity carrier and take care of this. The needed certification services will be contracted from the private sectors. So as mentioned, telecom companies and the banks established the certification center, and the services were 100% outsourced. The documents themselves also were contracted abroad. The international tender was won by Swiss company Trüb, who established here the daughter company for the personalization. So already several tender rounds had been, and Trüb daughter company had served us well. And so it was that in a very short time, in 2002, in January, the first ID cards were issued. And we reached, as you see, the number of 1 million in a little bit more than 4 years. For be precise, nowadays numbers are as follows. If I remember correctly, there are 1.1 million active, electronically active ID cards on use, and for at least one time during the lifetime of the cards, 450,000 people had used the card electronically. And the heavy users percentage is about 20-25%. So it's huge success. For comparison, the same type of the mandatory electronic ID card scheme in Belgium was about 7 million of population. They have reached the usage of 14%. And our statistics show that every week there's at least 1,000 new users. So what's the card? It's a hardware piece. To say it's dual use, from one side is a identity document, visually your biographic data is according to the ICAO travel card standard, personalized visually on the card from both sides, and it, for ease of use, it's so-called machine-readable document. It means optically your identity is checked very easily at the airports, border crossings. And as said, it's a state-issued ID and travel documents inside of the Schengen Agreement EU. It's the legally recognized ID document. Its maximum validity is for 5 years, and it's mandatory by the law to all residents, citizen residents of Estonia starting from age of 15, and those alien residents who have the residence permit for Estonia will receive the document from the very beginning of the residence. It contains, as said, a chip with the private keys of the person securely stored inside of the chip, and 2 certificates, one for authentication and second one for digitally signing the documents. During the times from the very beginning, as ID card and its electronic part, it's hardware which need from one side drivers, user software, utilities, whatever installations to make it work, to connect the card reader. So website id.de is like a single source for getting the knowledge. It provides information and the access to the helpline. As you see, there's a 24/7 serving telephone number which is in assistance. And what's the point? What Estonia is different? Typically, ID card is considered to be the token for authentication. It means if there's a web shop or bank or whatever, it's the first to access and authenticate and get the personal services, you need to be authenticated. It means some cryptographic transaction will connect to your to a personalized service, but legal wise, it's very hard to put the card users on the situation that the service provider will define by flashing the web browser pages what will be the legal result of this interconnection. Let's talk about it. In Estonia, we have put the focus on the meaning of the expression of the will and the ability to sign something. So, as this infrastructural part, it means telecommunication, fixed line computers, whatever, the token, ID card, and then the knowledge and ability to be free in your decisions. So in the legal system, government took the unprecedented courage and announced that after the system is built up and services will start to be used, every state institution and municipal also is obliged to accept the digitally signed communication documents on the same level as personally signed paper-based documents. And there was an aim to create digital signature architecture which is universal. It means it's not like a separate island, a service, a limited thing, but it's for the open usage in any relation, and for what most important, from the very beginning it was based that the created software solution will be distributed free of charge based on the open source code principle. And so we moved from the very beginning. So jointly, there were no adequate software solutions available. Government and private partners created DigiDoc infrastructure. It means, see the green bars, it basically the software code and documentation which is distributed free of charge. It contains the standardized document formats, program libraries. There is a services, it's a client software for download to sign the documents, and also it's up the DigiDoc signature portal for the users. Also for the corporate usage, there is a special web service which enables the digital signature. It's based on the international standards, and as a feature in the public key infrastructure world, it's always important to have the personal certificate validity checked, as person can in a seconds just denul his rights and fake or whatever. It's a security question. So we have in Estonia 24/7 up the online in-time certification service protocol, which confirms by signing or authentication that yes, this person's electronic identity is valid in the moment the transaction is made or a document is signed. And this may be a technically complicated feature that you can't give the legally valid signature without having the internet connection to have the CA confirmation that yes, this is a legally valid transaction. It still adds the possibility that this document is long-term, has a long-term validity, both legally and the possibility to archive it, and it doesn't change in the time. And already spoken that there's a typically the services are accessed with the use of the web browser, and there's several options. Starting from very lowest, it means for public services there's an agreement that Internet Web Bank users in Estonia can log into the e-government services also using the authentication of the web banks, be it with the use of the score or code cards or then the PIN calculators. This is the lowest security level option. Second one are already, as you see, already ID card, and starting from 2007 the mobile ID option. And then here is a picture of the citizens portal, but most of the separate services are also having the same type of the login window. It's also a certification center free software modules which are very easily and uniformly integrated to the service provider web pages. And now what we learned. Easiest answer what we learned is that everything is connected and everything is important. And it's really so. The first positive advice and answer, if there's the option that your electronic identity card is voluntary or mandatory, do the trick as we did, make it mandatory. It's a positive law enforcement that it works. Finnish experience shows that their population of about 5 million and already, I think, 12 years of experience, they have issued in total 250,000 cards. The number of the services is incomparably lower than in Estonia. So at least we suggest make it somehow, we call it positive enforcement, make it mandatory, but don't put the heavy sanctions if they immediately will not take the card. Anyway, it's a question of trust. PKI is a trust scheme, and enforcement in a very rude mode doesn't help you in usage, which is actually the goal, to achieve the knowledge, usage, common understanding that there is a transparent and secure mode of doing business in the internet. Also the question, what comes first, infrastructure or services? At the same time, actually. Nobody in the private business will not put up the service just for fun, without knowing what will be the break-even or feasibility phase. It means it all takes time, and there's this synergy in sharing the expenditure with the public sector. It means state should do, how to say, the entry and guarantee the secure token for the electronic commerce also. It was been talked about the motivation. This as important as for the service providers, for the users, is that the services which are accessed with the ID card are balanced. It means if the entry to the service just for getting the information and it needs for unnecessary authentication or even signing something, this bird will not fly. Also, it's spoken here in Estonia in an unprecedented way. The service contract in producing the national ID is outsourced to the foreign company. Also, state doesn't have its own state-owned top route CA, but it controls via the contracts and the supervision the infrastructure. Put all the technology risk into the companies and do what the state is needed to do, provide the decent, good and cheap service. Technology is not the question, risks are not lying there, it's still on the people. If the users will engrave the PIN codes to the card or will just lose it, then you can't do a thing. There's never too much of the training, awareness, and whatever is as look at the world have done. It's an unending growth of having new technology, new knowledge. And also a proper procurement measures, political consensus and business interest should be, how to say, binded through the learning by doing principle. If some things hadn't worked, we had negotiated private companies and the government and procured the new needed upgrades. It's the same, it's written down here that what's important. And please bear in mind that the top of the top still it's the privacy and security of the users. PKI system, unfortunately, is either technology where the trust, which one time is broken, the system is collapsed. Bear in the mind that you maintain the maximum highest level of security in your services and avoid so-called project fatigue. If you see the problem, grab it, try to solve it. Don't be so-called home blind that service is running, that everything is okay. Listen what your citizens and the users will need for. And as said, world is running, mobile is now, and whatever the future is, we will meet it. At least the tragedy would be if the electricity goes on. I don't know how we once again will start to re-establish our public services. Thank you for your time. And the information in English also can be found on those links. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. It's definitely very deep subject, and it's difficult to cover it in minutes. Now I must excuse, we're running over time. So if it's okay with you, we can continue. I guess we're not thrown out, but it's almost 1 and we have still 1 presentation. So close it. We'll continue. Okay. Then we have a couple of questions that we can take, probably. You had a question?
Thank you. I think it is very impressive. My question is about the database of citizens. We just talk about ID. From your the Estonian information system, you have the many e-services. So from my bank point of view, telecom point of view, health sector point of view, education point of view, they all need to access citizens' database. So how do you maintain this database and consolidate into this ID card? Thank you.
Oh, I've been delegated. It's actually rather simple. We have 2 different databases. One is for so-called family matters, where we register a child when they're born, or births and deaths and marriages and etc. But we have a different separate database where we manage legal identities. It means that when a person is issued a document, his or her identity is verified. So he's identified against all other persons in Estonia. And then it's entered in that registry. And all the major players who actually need to identify persons have access to that registry. It's done through X-Road. So we have so-called identification service built on that. So all the banks, police, everybody who needs to identify a person online immediately has access to this identity database. It's a kind of service. But of course, it's not a public service in the way that not everybody can access it. It's based on mutual contracts.
So who maintains those databases?
Police.
Прошу прощения, вот при составлении ID-карты используется очень много информации личного характера пользователя. Как в Эстонии преодолевался опыт, так как общество разделено на средний класс, богатый класс и с уровнем положения в обществе индивидуума, то есть пользователя. Были ли препоны и вообще барьер психологический был при получении данных IT-карт?
I personally don't remember any such cases. So everybody was accepting ID card quite okay. So there were no objections, no such big discussions around it. Of course, there are always some security freaks and people who try to argue if it's safe or correct, but public acceptance is very good. So we have to continue because time is running really late. So I would like to introduce the next speaker. She has been working in public sector and how to call it, private sector. It's a complicated status. And she has been working on registry of securities and private pensions for several years, building up a good public service and has a very thorough experience how to build a good service and how these things were thought at first and how they turned out. So please welcome Kaidi Ruusalepp.
Thank you. I would like to welcome you all to the country of registers, because in Estonia almost everything and everybody is registered in some of the registers, starting from cars, businesses, securities, ending with dogs and cats and the soil. But to answer to the last question, the ID card is just a gate to the databases. It does not contain personal data. You enter the ID card and then you can access different databases and different registers. So the ID card is just a little piece of a document with the personal identity, the name, the social security number, and then some of the ID information which is only known to the person, like the PIN codes and something else. Where should I show? Yes. I understand I have to be very fast, so I try to be very fast.
Brief.
Brief, yes. Last week, I spent with my family and friends in the middle of Finland, in the forest. We did some fishing, we grabbed mushrooms, we had an excellent time, but we had no internet at all for the whole week. And then we had a discussion with our friends that actually majority of the life in Estonia is online. You want to declare the taxes, you do it online. The meaning going to the bank has totally different meaning in Estonia. It means you log in and you're there. You register the name to your child online, your friends are online, everything is online. Which means that Estonians actually are very keen on using e-services online. And if we had known this 15 years ago, probably we would have done something differently. We would have not focused on the databases, but we would have focused more on the e-services. I will not dig into the different registers and different databases, but I will provide you the lessons learned. In 1996, when I started to work in the State Information Systems Department, we had really perfect timing to build up e-government. Because we had the newcomers' advantage or the latecomers' advantage. We had very good neighbors to learn from, Finland, Sweden. We went there, we saw what they have done already, what was the goal for Estonia, and we had the lessons learned from their experience. So we could avoid the mistakes and build what we actually wanted to have. And we didn't have the legacy hardware or platform restrictions. Because in mid-90s, it's the new age of new hardware started. You remember the IBM 383, 483, the new and fast servers. So we didn't have the old technical platform, but we could build new fast databases, and we could start collecting as much data as we wanted, because no restrictions from the hardware. Then what we were struggling then, and still a bit struggling now, is the paper-based mindset. We came from the paper-based world, and people had few ideas about the possibilities of technology. I remember when the first version of the electronic land register came out. You know, the land register in old times, there was a book, a huge book. People or the people in the court, working in the court, were writing this land number, this coordinates, this belongs to this person. And when someone else buys this piece of land, the old data was shrunken through with the red line. And when the lawyers got the new version, electronic land cadastre, they were very disappointed because they couldn't see the book on the screen. They couldn't turn the pages, strike through the old data with red line. So it's the paper-based mindset. And with the ID card, I remember that the ID card has been in usage for 2 years already. And then there was an interview with the First Lady of Estonia. And the journalist asked, do you use ID card? She said, yes, you know, it's very convenient to clean the windscreen of the car in winter time. So, in this, with this mindset, we were struggling when we were building up the databases, the registers, electronic registers. And of course, because the business people and lawyers, they had no idea about the possibilities of technology, the IT determined the solution. And an IT people, they were the people. Because of very fast development all around the country, the center could only react. And we were very few of us in the State Information Systems Department, only 5 people. And each of ministries had very good relationship with the same ministries in Finland, in Germany, in Sweden. They built up their own registers, their own databases, using their own standards at that time. And in the center, we could only see very fast development, and we could only react. And at that time, state budget was what we had because the center, the State Information Systems Department, decided where to invest the IT money, where to give it. And it was one very powerful tool to determine the development of state information systems. And legal framework was about how to establish registers, the establishment procedures of registers and data collection, not on e-services. We wanted to build up a databases with the very high quality of data. In 2000, where we reached to was that there was many registers around, many registers, but people could use the services by using the web pages of different registers, which means that you have to be very smart citizen to know which register keeps which data and which services you get from which registers. Then a dream in the year 2002 that there's one access point to all registers. It was a powerful dream, and we have the website eesti.ee. In English, it's estonia.ee. And we have the technical platform in here. You can see it's Internet X-Road. It's not only for people to get the services, e-government services, but it's also for the registers to start cross-usage the data, so that the data about the persons is in population register and the data about the businesses is in commercial registers. And if they want to get either of each other's data, they won't ask it from the company or from the person, but they ask it from each other. So in next session, you will hear much more about the X-Road. But where we ended in 2011, is the picture in here. And do you think, what do you think what is the most difficult thing to change? A habit. If people are used to use services from the different web pages of different registers, it's very difficult to get them starting the usage services from the center. There's two possibilities. One is to force everybody to go to the center, which is unacceptable in Estonia. Another one is to make this center so much better, so much convenient, providing you so much more possibilities than going separately to each registers. And we're on the half of this way. And lessons learned. You should, and one should focus on e-services, not on data collection. When we established a database or register of the registers, which aim was to keep the data of, not the data of the registers, but the metadata of the registers, which registers are in Estonia. Then the registrar decided to ask the technical data about the server, the programming language or the software language of this database, etc., etc. But this is not what people needed. People needed to know which registers, what data, what services, how do I access there. So it's a different setup, mind setup. Architecture should be made by business people, not by IT. IT people are too rational, and the life is not rational. Imagine architects building or drawing buildings, with the help and in immediate consultancy with builders. Then the Sydney Opera House probably would have never been built. So it's the business mindset which says that the register should be built up this way. And of course, these people have to consult each other, because otherwise the solution would be too expensive. But not the IT should say that we will do this register this way. It's too rational. And guidance for the service providers and end users from the center. That's what they need. If they go to the offices of state institutions, the first thing they ask for help. It's exactly what they need from the internet. They need the guidance. And the last lesson learned is that one institution should have the helicopter view on e-services, e-government. Because each institution will do their role, will fulfill their duties, will build up their own little e-government, but someone should have a helicopter view and power to guide this implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a very good insight because I've been working in the government several years, and exactly things tend to go that way, unfortunately. Any questions?
Thank you very much. My question is on your last slide. Have you developed a standard guidelines for electronic services to help registrars to build and define their online service in a convenient way to the users? And the second question is, in this helicopter view, which entity in Estonia now have this view? And what is the relationship between this institution and the rest of government agencies?
Still, I will answer the second part of the questions. There is still State Information Systems Department under the Ministry of Economy and Communications. And you will hear the head of this department, Margus Püüa, talking in the next session after the lunch about the X-Road. And this institution still has some power on implementing on the helicopter view, but probably it's too weak. It should have more. It depends on what you want. But looking at the e-government, there should be a stronger view. But this guidance, it's the very simple thing that when a citizen enters to website, first the website should be very easy to navigate, very easy to understand, but he or she wants to know how to submit an application, how should I fill in data, what services do I get? If I order, I don't know, if I want to register the building license of the license of the building of my house, then when do I get the response? What's next? It's the typical questions people ask from the desk, and these questions they want to be answered online, but probably some technical assistance as well. Press the button.
Yes. My name is Al Jansen from Norway. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. My question is about legacy systems. That's maybe one of the great problems in developing e-government services, to have a number of old systems based on old standards, old data formats. So how did you manage to solve these problems?
I think we didn't have very old systems, very old. That was one of our advantage. We didn't have very old. When I'm working in the stock exchange, and we had discussion with the colleagues in Denmark. They asked, what about the paper-based securities? I asked, what about the paper-based securities? You mean the paper-based securities? You know, some online, some in the databases, and some paper-based. We have no paper-based securities in Estonia, and we don't have this question. And all the databases are built in new software, in new standards, in new systems. It's very difficult to describe, but we don't have this problem.
But I would put it that way, that there are different systems, and the answer is there. They say X-Road.
Yes.
That's the way how to interconnect. So everybody has to connect just to one standard, not everybody with everybody.
Yes, yes.
So, one more question. And then, of course, if there are any questions that somebody kind of thought I couldn't ask in the time, all the speakers are still here, so we can shoot one or two, and then it's probably time for having dinner. Right. Lunch, okay, sorry, lunch.
Sure.
It hasn't been so long session.
It
Thank you very much for the
extreme long.
presentation. During your presentation, you mentioned that there were two options to make the Estonia.ee website popular and attractive enough and then fully used by the citizens. One is mandatory, the second is make the center website better than the others. So am I understand correctly that currently there's a central website, but there's still some website by different ministries and agencies?
Yes.
So you have a dual system going on, but the information you get is identical. Is there any plan to merge completely, or you want to leave as it is and then let the natural force settle the course?
The different websites will stay anyway, because the duty of the ministries is not only to keep the register, but to provide many other services. But the idea of the central point of the website, it's because that it's much easier for the citizen to go to one website, to remember the name of the website, to URL of the website, and to get all services from there. This e-services center website should be for the e-services which people can, or it should be the access to the registers, to the state registers. But the website for the ministers, they can show you the way to the registers, but the aim of the ministry's website is to provide the information about the duties and tasks of the minister. It should be the different meaning of those two different websites. And what I see, the only thing we could do is to make the central website better and better and better, and probably to do some marketing for this website, which hasn't been done.
So, we're running late. Is there anybody? Everybody's thinking about food, I guess. Then I would really thank all the speakers, and please give them a big round of applause.